Hello and welcome to a numerical palindrome of a show, episode 212 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And we're a little later this week because we had some technical issues and also wanted to cover some things that were going on. So I'm going to start talking about the Masters.
Go right ahead.
And, I saw the ratings were down for the final day, but it was a very anticlimactic ending. When you're leading the last 2 days and you got a big lead, you got a 5 or 6 stroke. Even though they won by one, it really wasn't in doubt. He bogeyed the last hole, but he didn't need a par or a birdie. So it was very anticlimactic. So the ratings were really down. And then you also had a number of people that are attractive players that used draw ratings that didn't make it either. And they weren't even covered. So it's just what it is.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll continue. There was a young guy that played well, and he was a friend of Jordan Space, and he did really well, and he was exciting, but it just wasn't all that. It just lacked the drama, and you need the drama, and you really need a player that people really either really really like or really really don't like. Just like football, you need that person that's going to drive, stir the drink, as they say.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have it. Matsuyama was a great story, but he doesn't speak English, and so he's limited in what he's going to say, and he's also culturally, he's very very polite, and was very proper and very humble, and so it was a very simple interview. One of the most powerful images, though, was when his caddy put the flag back in the hole on 18. He bowed, and that's a picture that's gone all over the place. And that was a really cool thing. It shows the reverence for the game and how much they respect things and everything. So I really like that. But then Matsuyama was flying commercial, and he's flying commercial and just carrying the jacket over his shoulder in the airport. So real humble guy, real basic guy. It was a nice story that he won, but just wasn't the drama that you'd like to have in a big tournament.
No. Well, we can roll right into the main event of Sunday and Saturday.
Yes, go ahead.
WrestleMania. Now, not technically a sport, but sports entertainment. But we had a couple of interesting things on Saturday night, because WrestleMania is now a 2-night event. Took place in Tampa with the pirate ship and all that good stuff. The championship women's match actually closed the show, so it was the headliner for one of the WrestleMania nights. And it was Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. So you had 2 African-American women wrestlers closing out WrestleMania, which is, women alone, let alone 2 African-American women, is pretty impressive. And they're also just 2 incredible wrestlers if you're into professional wrestling. And then I'll give one more, pseudo kudos to WWE. There's currently a wrestler, 2 wrestlers now, one a former football player and one who's been in the wire a while, and he's a Nigerian, and he actually is Nigerian, but they haven't played it in anything other than respect, which is, anyone that has any history with a Worldwide Wrestling Federation, going back to WWF days, WWE days, or any of them, they're usually not very, usually when you pick any sort of ethnicity or anything else, they take it to the poorest extreme. Where this one, he's just a proud Nigerian prince warrior, and it's, for WWE, it's very well done so far. They haven't done any sort of, Nigerian bankruptcy or any kind of weird, they've kept it classy, which is really not like them.
So they haven't done like Coming to America kind of thing.
They have not. And it's, other than that, it was a pretty standard WrestleMania. The one thing they're trying to do is make sure that they try to bring young stars up. Because I think we talked about this before, but the one problem that Vince McMahon seems to have is he's always trying, and it's been successful in the past. You go from Hulk Hogan to John Cena to The Rock, Stone Cold, like these guys that transcend the sport. And he sort of has Roman Reigns now, who's also done some, he's been in the Fast and the Furious with his cousin The Rock. And Sasha Banks has done the Mandalorian Disney show. So he's getting a couple of people, but it seems like he's so focused on just trying to find that one star that he ends up neglecting a lot of youth. And, they'll bring in other things. But then the last thing about WWE that was crazy, Bad Bunny, who was I think a platinum Grammy winner huge recording artist. Normally, when the wrestling has a cameo from a celebrity, it's pretty lame. The celebrity is pretty much protected, and at some point during the night, he gets to swing a guitar or a chair and hit somebody and fall on them. But Bad Bunny, who was a real wrestling fan, has spent, I think it was like 4 months in Orlando at the WWE Performance Center training, and he put on a really good match. And I just think it's really cool that like somebody that clearly doesn't have to do WWE stuff, but was such a fan, put in all that work to make himself look good and show his love of the. And they said that he's raised the bar for every other celebrity. So shout out to Bad Bunny.
Like somebody that really isn't in it just for themselves, but they're in it because it's something they like and they're promoting something they like as well as promoting themselves.
Yeah,
that's a win-win. That's a great situation.
And again, you could tell from interviews like he has been watching wrestling his entire life. If he wasn't a Grammy Award winning singer, I'm sure he'd want to pursue wrestling. And, to put in that kind of work is really impressive. And like I said, his ring work, you could tell he was green and raw because he's not, a veteran, but he hung with everybody and looked like he knew what he was doing. And he put off some really cool moves. So I've gained a lot of respect for the Bad Bunny. I still don't know what any of his songs are, but...
Was The Undertaker there?
No, The Undertaker's retired at this point.
But I thought he put an appearance in or something.
Oh, I don't... Yeah, well, they had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, so... Where, they...
Because I was wondering, how old is that dude?
He's in his 50s, but, we'll finish up on this wrestling topic, but... Much like football players, like wrestlers don't have the longest of lifespans, and their bodies are really beat up. They're doing insane stunts like 300 nights a year, and that just puts a huge toll on your body, Because you took, when I was a kid, like you land on that mat. That mat is basically just plywood with like a thin pad on it. It's not soft at all, and those ring ropes are not soft, and it's choreographed, but it is a physical toll of a sport that causes a lot of concussion.
We saw the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter.
Well, we got to see The Undertaker and Kane. I remember that.
Yeah.
And, and Trish Stratus.
And I still remember we went to American Gladiators live?
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's an American Gladiators documentary on the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Remember we went to that in St. Louis, and I was impressed because they weren't fooling around.
No.
They were. I think if you lost, you could lose your job. So they were slamming people.
Oh yeah, American Gladiators, because they really haven't done anything else like that. I know you have like American Ninja Warrior, but that's just a solo. Not that it's not impressive, but you're just doing an obstacle course essentially. Where American Gladiators was like, they were tackling people, smashing people. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was real cool. I remember when we went.
I'm surprised Vince McMahon hasn't made his own like WWE version. I think that'd be pretty cool. Get some wrestlers involved.
Yeah. So let's see what we got. Well, we haven't talked about Gonzaga Baylor, have we?
We have not, sadly. We didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, we should
talk. Yeah, it was great to Baylor. They look great.
They really did. It was Baylor just really hit their stride, and Baylor's defense was one of the best defenses I've ever seen. They were stifling, they were physical, they were in your jock, and it made it tough for guys to get their shot off.
Yeah.
Or to even have a shot.
And that
did they get in at the same time? They came out and they were hitting 60% of their shots in the first half of the first half.
And much like the Masters, it was really anticlimactic. Like that game was over.
Yeah, it was wire to wire. They led, and it really was not a contest.
No, and you didn't feel like there was halftime adjustments to be made. They were just getting outplayed and out executed, and there really wasn't much they could do. Baylor was the better team, despite
Baylor was the better team, and the women. The Stanford game was closer than I thought it was going to be.
It definitely was.
But it was. That Arizona team was a fun team to watch, much like the UCLA was. And it's nice when you get a team like that that is a Cinderella. Even though they were a 3 seed, They weren't a 1 seed, they weren't a 2 seed, they were a 3 seed. So they weren't expected to be there. But they were an exciting and a fun team to watch.
Oh, without a doubt.
So again, we're still moment is James Conner signed with the Arizona Cardinals today.
Good for him.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, he's not proven he can play a whole season yet.
No. Even the Pro Bowl year where he came in, took over for Le'Veon Bell, he got hurt after week 12.
Yeah.
And he really only played well. He had an amazing 8-week stretch. And then, then he got a little nicked up, banged up, and then he ended up missing a couple of games. And I don't know who's going to be the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, but,
Well, let's hope to God it's somebody not on the roster.
At this point, either Anthony McFarland has to become, incredible, which I don't really know at this point. But we know it's not Benny Snell or Jalen Samuels. It wasn't going to be James Conner. And it's not whoever that other guy they signed this year is, who I already forgot his name. And I don't think they're giving it to Watt, the fullback, very often.
No. So I'm hoping it's a guy named Najee.
I like him a lot. I got that draft Nick first round running back thing in my head,
Yeah. I mean, they all say it. You don't take a running back in the first round.
I think technically, though, I don't think the reason you wouldn't take a running back in the top 10 typically is you're so bad if you're in the top 10 that, the average running back lasts, 2.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
So, by the time you're good, your running back that would be on his second contract, which you either paid him for or you've ran him into the ground from having a bad offensive line. But I think if you, and again, we've talked on the show and I won't go into it again, but if you think you're a contender, I think drafting a running back after 20 makes sense. If that's a position of need and you've got a great talented player, that can make a huge difference. Like the Chiefs thought last year, I just don't think he worked out, Edwards-Helaire worked out quite as well, but if you're the defending Super Bowl champs, and granted they could have used an offensive lineman, but that was a whole other,
Yeah, I don't think they knew at the time that the doctor was going to go, that was not going to come back and play.
Right.
Because that was, no, I take it back. What was going on then?
Yeah, like a lot of the draft rules seem to, they work out by the numbers, but it's also the circumstance. Like, a lot of top 5 quarterbacks don't work out, but a lot of quarterbacks in general don't work out. And if you go to a bad team, play behind a bad offensive line, that can just wreck your career. Even look at ones that were really good, like a Robert Griffin, who came out and just destroyed the league for 9 weeks. They brought him back too soon, and he was never the same player again.
Well, let's talk quarterback.
Okay.
So, you and I talked the other day offline, and I said, do we really think the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones, or are we smoke screening? What are we doing here?
I think there's smoke screening.
Mac Jones was, a guy early second round. Then he was a guy that could follow the Steelers at 24. And then he was going to be in the teams. And now he's 3.
Yeah. And he looked very good in college, but he has, I think, potentially 2 offensive linemen in the first round, 2 wide receivers in the first round, and a running back in the first round. And, I don't judge Tua based on that because Tua came from a similar situation, and Tua just, was coming off that devastating injury, so I don't really know what to think of that. But, you couldn't be you have the best coach in college football, the best players in college football, and, 2 top 10 wide receivers, and, a running back with top 10 talent. And, I don't know. But again, Tom Brady keeps winning Super Bowls, and he's not an athlete not a speedster, can't run, can't juke, can't stretch, but he gets it done.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's going to be fun to watch and see who trades up, see who trades down, see how many quarterbacks go in the first round. We're about, 2.5 weeks away?
2.5 weeks away. I still think it's crazy. We talked about this offline as well, but Justin Fields coming out of high school was 1B to Trevor Lawrence's 1A. Last year, there was talk, because, Trevor Lawrence, I wouldn't say he struggled last year, but he didn't live up to the freshman hype. And, people thought coming into this season that Justin Fields might be the best quarterback in the class. And, during a COVID year, pretty crazy season for everybody, emotionally, physically, whatever you want to say. He had two sort of rough games. And now all of a sudden he's the fourth or fifth best quarterback in this class. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You know?
Well, he's having his other pro day now, so we'll see.
He is. And I know that the other thing they said is that, you know, he went to his number one read, I think it was like 89% of the time. But technically your first read is where the ball is supposed to go on every play. And if you're Ohio State and you've got great receivers and they're open, then that's the ball you're going to throw it, you know?
And if your first read is open, you don't need a second read.
Right. And if you're completing almost 70% of your passes in college, not turning the ball over, and leading one of the best offenses in college football, you throw the first read when the read is open. Like, it's a weird one, you know? It's like, it's hard to say how that would go.
I do think there might be some Dwayne Haskins hangover.
Oh, I think there definitely is. I mean, there's certain, you know, and now apparently Kellen Mond, speaking of quarterbacks, the kid out of Texas Tech, who's a 4-year starter who's shown, you know,
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, yeah, that he's creeping into the early second round, maybe even late first round buzz.
Yeah, depending how many teams need a quarterback. Absolutely.
And if you're one of the
He had
teams,
some unbelievable stats when he talked about the stats the other day.
yeah, and if you're the Bears, if you're the Redskins, if you're the Raiders who never seem to like who they have on the quarterback, or the Patriots, maybe you trade back into the back half of the first round and pick somebody like that, and don't let them get to date. You know, you got to have a quarterback to win.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be fun to see how all this stuff plays out.
And a little less
Baseball
fun.
moments, though.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen him play yet, stay up late or watch an afternoon game, but try and watch Ohtani play for the Angels. Watch him pitch, watch him hit. I mean, he can hit the ball.
He really can.
He's a big kid, real strong kid, big swing, left-handed pop. I mean, he's strong.
He's
really a good player to watch.
And, you know, while we're here talking baseball, Killian Hayes started out pretty nice. I was on the injured reserve list, but, you know.
Brian Hayes, yeah.
Maybe.
And he's probably out for a little bit. And Fernando Tatis is out. He has his shoulder separation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's baseball. Yeah, the Dodgers are out playing well. The Yankees are playing well. The Rays are playing well. Padres are playing very well.
Yeah, all the teams we expect to play well, they're pretty much playing well.
And I went to Pittsburgh and I saw 4 games, and the Pirates won 2 and lost 2, which was better than I had hoped.
I was like, that's a big improvement for a team you thought could win, you know, a ridiculously slow amount of games. But in typical Pirate fashion, you know, if they finish third and miss out on one of those 2 pitchers we've talked about on the show before, that'd be a real bummer.
Well, they already have the 1 pick this year.
Oh, that's right, they do. Okay, yeah.
So they're fine. And I talked to the general manager last night, and he told me that there's 4 players they're considering. Those 2 and a high school shortstop, and I forget who the 4th player was. And I'm just thinking, well, I've seen the pitchers. I would want them. So
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, drafting somebody out of high school just feels like such a, you know, because even you talk about, you know, back to the NFL draft for a minute, and you have a lot of GMs that are, you know, saying this is going to be the most difficult draft they've had because they don't, you know, they had the COVID year and a lot of players didn't play this 1 year, but they have tape on them for 2 other seasons of college football. And, you know, when you're drafting a high school kid in the hopes that you think he's going to be something in 4 or 5 years in baseball, that's just such a weird thought, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if he's 18 years old, you know, if he has a rapid ascent through the minor leagues, he's 22.
Yeah.
So 4 years later.
And you're projecting somebody to, you know, go from high school pitching to major league pitching or major league hitting and hoping they can, you know, pull in. And, you know,
it's hard to fathom sometimes.
Because at least with football and basketball, you've seen them at least a couple of times a year against other players. You know, you have the 1-to-1 comparison. Whereas baseball, like a high school kid, like, there's a good chance you've never seen him against another high school player that's going to be in the major leagues. Which is just, you know.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about my experience of attending the games.
Oh, please do.
And, you know, they're approved to have up to 50% from the state of Pennsylvania, okay?
Okay.
But the CDC guidelines say you have to be 6 feet apart. So if you're 6 feet apart, you can't have 50% attendance
No.
because you can't accommodate that many people. So they had about 8,000, 8,500 a game, and that's all they could accommodate.
But with this 6 feet
Because it was a
apart,
6 foot goal.
you can be you could still be next to mom though, right? You can be next to
Yeah, in your pod.
in your pod.
The pods have to be 6 feet apart.
Okay. And the pod.
So nobody within. So you get 4 people in your pod.
Right.
Then you could have 6 foot from either of the aisle people. And I mean, they did a really good job of it. I mean, we sat. There was nobody in front of us, nobody directly behind us. And if there was somebody else in our row, they were way down, probably about 8 or 9 seats in between. And they have some pods that are set up for 2, because they have all seats tied down. Some seats set up for 2, some seats tied up for 4, some seats tied up for 6.
Nice.
But I also want to talk about a couple other things about my baseball experience. So, scalpers have learned about ticketless entry. Because I was watching scalpers with tickets on their cell phone, exchanging with people, showing them seat location on their phone, and then transferring the tickets from their phone to the buyer's phone, and then you're taking cash or Venmo.
Well, you gotta like that on some level, right?
You gotta like that. Okay, that just shows how you can adapt, right?
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, the Pirates were cashless. Everything was cashless.
Yeah.
So all the concession stands, and guess what happened?
Sold less
The
food.
computers went down, and you couldn't have transactions.
So
Because there's no backup. There's no, if you couldn't say, okay, I'll take cash, because you couldn't make change, because there's no system there
Oh yeah.
to make change. There's no system there to handle cash. So it was a mess. And then I bought a carved turkey sandwich and a soda, and they charged me $38. And I said, whoa. And they go, oh, it rang up twice. And I go, well, why don't you just credit me? And they couldn't credit me. So they're still, I'm waiting. Today I was supposed to get the notification from Thursday that they were able to credit me.
Wow.
So again, I mean, all these things, technology is great, but you need a backup plan.
You do.
You need to have some other way of figuring it out.
Well, we went old school. We were wrapping the show that I was working on, and we're selling off a lot of our stuff. You have to pay by check here there. So we're doing no technology.
Certified check, cashier's check?
Just a regular, you can personal check is fine, but it's got to be a check.
Oh.
Yeah. Which again, that's like the opposite. I mean, it's not quite cash, but a check is, pretty rare these days. I think.
Well, not me, because I am old school.
Okay. So, we also do, when we do our Friday pull every week on set, it's all Venmo. The guy that walks around just has a giant barcode on the bucket instead of putting money in there now. It's just tickets and Venmo, and if you win, you get Venmo.
Yeah.
So it's all over the place.
It is. I mean, but you got to have a system, and you got to understand what you need to do and what you can't do. I mean, you got to understand it.
Well,
you got to have a backup plan, because there's people behind me in line when I was trying to get this refund, and they were going, "Can I just give you cash?" And they were saying, "No, because we can't take your cash." Well, I want a hot dog. Well, you can't have a hot dog. Only your credit card, and your credit card wouldn't work because the machine was down.
Well, this seems like an excellent time to roll right into my NBA Top Shot minute.
Yes.
So, I would say this. All the prices are way down right now. The market has sort of self-corrected itself, so everything's a little bit more realistic as far as the price goes. So, like right now I'm looking, you can get a Nikola Jokic for $15. You get a Bradley Beal for $7. And granted, these aren't the best serial numbers, but I mean, those are star players. There's an Anthony Davis for $15. Chris Paul for $8. So, I mean, they've really come down to be a lot more realistic. But they did yesterday. Now, I didn't qualify, and I'm not sure what I have done even if they did. But they sold Legend Packs. And a Legend Pack costs $999, and you get 3 moments. Now, granted, one of the moments already listed for $233,000. So
Which one was that?
it was a LeBron dunk. But it seems like most of the legend cards. I mean, and this is the important part. They're listing between probably 2,500 and 5,000 per legend card or legend moment. But they're not
So
legends of the
legends,
NBA.
these are legends that are actively playing, or legends?
Legends that are actively playing. So we're not getting, we're still not getting Michael Jordan. We're not getting Bill Russell or Magic or Larry. We're not getting those yet.
Okay.
But like I said, the market, it really self-correct. But the way the legends work is, and like I said, I didn't qualify, is that you had to have owned. There was like 4 different criteria you had to own. You had to be part of one of them. So one of them was having owned 15 moments, and I did not own 15 moments yet. And again, I don't know if I mean, the way the market is shifting right now. Like I said, the prices have come. The ones I just read off. I mean, those are great players, and you're getting pretty realistic prices. So I don't know where it goes moving forward from here, but those are, that's where it's at. It went from pretty ridiculous prices to, I think, what you would get for a modern day basketball card of this year.
Yeah, and now what you're going to have is all the other leagues are trying to get in on it. Tom Brady's doing his own thing. Gronk's doing his own thing. So you're going to have a lot of stuff coming out, and we'll see how it all sorts out. Just because, at one time, all the baseball cards were tops.
Right.
And then it was Fleer, and then it was Don Russ. And then it was a bunch of these other things. They were all coming out. And, just diluted it for a while, and now it's come back where those older cards are worth more money now than they ever were before.
Yeah, so here's another LeBron James. It's a dunk against the Golden State Warriors, where he pretty much breaks through, or against the Nuggets, he breaks through traffic. It's going for between 27,000 and 38,000. And again, that's just what they're listing it at, so it doesn't even mean that it's sold or even has a chance of selling, but that's what it's going for. But everything else, like I said, everything else has come way back to earth. So just keep that in mind if you're still thinking about NBA Top Shot.
Yeah, wow. I got a bunch of food moments, as you can imagine.
Of course.
But Pittsburgh was kind of shut down. I mean, it was, the restaurants weren't at full capacity, and you had to have reservations. And so my favorite restaurant, a la Familia, we got into last night, a Monday night at 4:30.
Ah.
But I needed the 4:30 because we were going to go to the game. But I couldn't go. Friday. Couldn't go Saturday. Couldn't go Sunday. Had to go Monday.
Wow.
And there was another one I wanted to go to. It's like an Argentinian. It's called the Gaucho. It's an Argentinian barbecue place.
Okay.
But it's an independent. It's not one of the chains. And I tried on that one, and I wouldn't have been able to get it until this Thursday.
Wow.
But I did have Fiore's pizza. But we had to eat in our car because we can't sit in Fiore's and eat. So that was one thing. And then we went to Franco's and had veal, and it was tremendous. And we went to, actually one night, we went on, because you couldn't, everything was closed. It was a Sunday night. And so I went DoorDash. And I picked this place called Pizzeria Davide. And it was outstanding.
Oh.
And when I say outstanding, I mean it was a mile away, and he delivered it to the hotel, and the pizza was still warm and still crispy.
Oh, that's really impressive.
It was very impressive. It was really good pizza too, and it was called Old World Style Pizza. It was like grandma's with sauce on top.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of being a real thick Sicilian pizza, it was just a round New York style pizza with cheese on the bottom and sauce on top.
Okay.
So you had to make it extra crispy, and it was really good. It was outstanding.
Nice. I guess I did have a food moment this week. Krispy Kreme has teamed up with Oreo to make 2 different Oreo donuts, which I was very excited to try, but sadly I can't recommend that they're very good. So.
But it's an interesting concept, though.
It is. Well, the one donut, it's basically like it's the typical whatever the regular donut is, their glazed donut, with Oreo cream. It's like pumped through the tubing of the actual donut, covered in chocolate, and then that's one variety. And the other variety, then they take the Oreo cream, squirt it on top of the donut, and put a large Oreo cookie outer shell on top.
Ooh.
But
They sound really good. I mean, I would have bought those too.
They just
but they weren't all that.
they weren't all that. It doesn't quite taste like an Oreo. I mean, not that it should taste like in its Oreo combo, but I feel like Oreo. Whenever you try to bring Oreo into something, when you're not directly bringing the Oreo into it, always tastes like a cheap imitation of said Oreo. And I just feel like the regular donuts are just better than that particular donut. But Krispy Kreme is my favorite donut, and Oreo is my favorite, non-bakery cookie. Yeah. So I saw those, and I was like, I'm not. I sent Maria, and I was like, well, I know we said we're gonna eat healthier this week, but what am I gonna do?
You have to try it.
Oreo and Krispy Kreme had a baby, so I have to try them. But yeah, like I said, I was, there's when we got rid of our donuts at the end of the weekend, there were two of we bought 4 of those Oreo donuts. There were 2 left, so.
Oh. Yeah, that doesn't.
And it wasn't bad. It's just I try to make sure if I'm going to eat something that I know is, just terrible for me, it needs to reach a certain level of deliciousness.
Well, I subscribe to, since I have a Traeger grill, I subscribe to this guy called The Meat Church out of Texas, and he does all these phenomenal barbecue recipes, right?
Right.
This week, he did chicken fried steak.
Okay.
And so I bought the chicken fried steak pack, which was the seasoning and the breading. So Mom and I are going to try that this week. And he has a video that goes with the chicken fried steak, and it looks awesome.
Now, how does he do his? Does he do the cast iron skillet with a little bit of
Yes,
oil?
And he does a double dredge.
Because
you take it through the flour.
Yeah.
Then you put it in the egg wash, and then it goes back in the flour.
Yeah.
So it's a double dredge, and that's what makes it crispy.
Well, I know a lot of people, and especially down here in New Orleans, I've tried to explain to people, it needs to be pan fried in a cast iron skillet. It shouldn't be deep fried like a chicken nugget.
No.
Because it's not what you want. Even like the good places in Texas that even use the flat iron grill, they squirt a bunch of oil and then cook it on top of that and flip it in more oil. But they never submerge it like a chicken nugget, because it's not what chicken fried steak is.
Granny's used to be a flat top.
Yeah.
But now it's a skillet. But the skillet is good.
The skillet's very good. That's how Mom used to make them, and they're great that way. It's just that people seem to it's not supposed to be deep fried like a chicken nugget. Because it's not what it doesn't taste nearly as good that way. I don't know what else to tell you.
Any entertainment?
I don't think I watched anything we watched Barb and Star, the Kristen Wiig movie.
With Kristen Wiig?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was okay. I was thinking, I thought it was going to be a lot weirder than it was, where it's got a very conventional plot. If you enjoy Kristen Wiig, you're going to enjoy the movie. She plays 2 different roles in it, the Eddie Murphy of the past.
Oh, she plays 2 roles?
She does.
Okay.
And she and Barb, she and the other woman are very fun. You can tell they're friends in real life, and they had a lot of fun making the movie. You can tell, you can see it's a labor of love. I just thought it was going to be a little bit more out there, because that's what I was sort of anticipating. But it's a lot more of a conventional comedy. It's got 1 or 2 musical scenes that get a little weird, but for the most part, it stays, in the vein of a traditional 3-act comedy. But if it pops up on the HBO, I would definitely watch it.
Enjoying my Turner Classic Blues, but I didn't get Turner Classic Blues last week in Pittsburgh, so I've been 6 days without it. But this is their tribute to the Oscars, so every film is an Oscar winner, and they're all in alphabetical order.
Oh.
So I've been, I look each day I get up, and I look, and I just start, taping some of them so I can watch them later on. So tonight we're going to tape King Solomon's Mines, which I've never seen.
Nor have I. And
there's a lot of really good 40s and 50s stuff. And then remember that Tom Hanks, The Lady Killers?
Vaguely.
And it was a horror movie?
Yes.
Well, the original Lady Killers was an Academy Award winner.
I know.
And I didn't know that. Have you seen it?
I have not, but I did know that fact. Because when that first came out, a lot of the critics were talking about how is this movie so bad when it's based on something so good. And sort of tying in the TMC.
I watched Gaslight last week because we went alphabetical order. I was into G's. And you know what? As many times as I see Gaslight, it's still such a great movie.
It's a great movie, and everyone that runs around using the phrase "they're gaslighting me" needs to actually watch what gaslighting is, because many people use it wrong.
Yeah.
Just like to point that out.
I mean, it's so well done. Ingrid Bergman, Joseph Cotton, it's just really, really well done.
Yeah. And like I said, I feel like a lot of people need a lesson in what gaslighting actually means. So watch the movie because it's fantastic. And speaking of TMC, I looked at pictures of the original King Kong and original Godzilla, and then we watched King Kong vs. Godzilla on HBO because it's on this month.
What do you think?
I think people that watched it in the 30s and 40s would be absolutely amazed at how far we've come with technology and how cool it can look. But, that's where I'll leave it. If you want to watch incredible CGI dinosaur fighting, it's there for you. But, I don't know if it's really like,
Yeah, there's not a lot you can do with the story. I mean, the story is the story.
The story is the story. And almost like with Vin Diesel or in a wrestling, you could tell that they wanted to protect both Godzilla and King Kong, not letting either of them look too weak. So.
Did they both survive? Can I ask a spoiler question? Did they both survive?
Yeah, so if anybody who listens to our podcast is concerned, this will be we're going to end the podcast soon, so I'll spoil the movie. So, see you later. Yes, they both survive, but they team up to kill Mecha Godzilla.
Okay.
So the basic plot is a little bit like Highlander. There can only be one giant monster, and that giant monster is sort of the protector of Earth, and he doesn't mess with Earth. But, in Kong has been kept in this secret facility where he doesn't realize, he knows he's in they basically took Kong Skull Island and put like the Superdome over top of it so that Godzilla can't find him. But once the evil corporation that has decided we need a Mecha Godzilla, a controlled human, a controlled robot one, because we can't trust the monster. And then that pisses off Godzilla, and then he and Kong have like 4 different fights where they both look pretty good, and then they team up and defeat the giant robot and the evil corporation. And I guess while we're in our weird...
I want to give a shout out to This Is Us this year.
Okay.
I was kind of down on the show last year because every time I watched it, it was a downer. And this year, there's some down moments, but there's some up moments. But what I really like is the integration of how you take something that happened to them when they were kids and make it relevant to where they are in their adult lives. And they do it so well and so consistently. It's unbelievable.
Well, now that we're in bonus entertainment mode, I rewatched Michael Mann's Manhunter again recently because it was on a podcast I was listening to. They were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great Hannibal Lecter movie.
It is.
Dennis Farina. Some of the music is a little weird because it's very 80s, but it's just a beautiful, fantastic movie. And it introduces a lot of... I was told from the podcast that, William Peterson's character who sort of does the stand in a room and he's like... sort of trying to get in the mind of the serial killer. That was one of the first representation of film of that style, and it obviously was very influential moving forward.
Speaking of which, I wish they would bring back Mindhunters.
Yeah. Oh, and while we're in our weird bonus section, somebody of the same podcast recommended, which is on HBO Max right now, watch Clint Eastwood's Tightrope.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, because that's apparently on HBO Max right now, and he said it's obviously not near the level of Manhunter, but it's a really good,
It's a very good psychological drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Clint Eastwood makes some great faces.
Because they said that one and Play Misty for Me were like Clint Eastwood's 2 sort of out of Clint Eastwood territory movies that are both really good. But Tightrope, if you're still listening to our podcast right now, is on HBO if you want to check it out. So.
HBO Max or HBO?
HBO Max, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just...
It's a great movie. I haven't seen that one in a while.
Maybe you need to watch it. I plan on watching it again now, or watching it for the first time, I should say, now that I have access to it.
What do you think about it?
Yeah. I guess we'll probably wrap things up. Sorry for the delay again. We'll be back next week. Usual time, most likely. Knock on wood.
Enjoy. Watch a little baseball and try and catch up. Try and catch Otani. He's worth watching.